My sister worked as an assistant manager in the chemical industry. I visited her one day and she looked worried. I asked her what happened, and she revealed how she wasn't paid for the past 1.5 months. Knowing the owner, she said, he wouldn't pay them so soon and might delay even more. I told her to register a complaint and ask other employees for help. She agreed and asked me to pick her up in case anything went wrong. She was 23 and didn't have a lot of experience. That always seemed to drag her down. I had assured her multiple times that this wasn't something she should worry about, as she was doing great. However, she never found comfort in my words. Her friends told me that her boss often berated her, which led her to lose her confidence. The next day, I arrived to her office right after clocking out from work. I saw a man standing in front of the entrance. He was visibly irritated. His face was all scrunched up and he was smoking a cigarette. I saw my sister coming out of the office with a cardboard box. I understood what that meant. She was in tears. I asked her what had happened and she told me that she was fired from the office for demanding her wages. She got paid eventually, but the owner insulted her pretty badly. Then she looked behind at the man and sat in the car. I asked who he was and she told me that it was her boss. I walked to her boss and asked him what his problem was. He told me that I wasn't his employee and I had no right to tell him what to do. He was right, although I wouldn't take this situation so kindly too. If I had to take revenge, I would have to use fair and legal tactics instead of getting into a stupid argument and ruining it all. I began collecting information from my sister. I went to my office and asked about my sister's factory and if there were any complaints from other employees. Soon, I found a complaint registered by one of the employees. It was mentioned that the employees weren't paid for almost 2 months and the owner was withholding everyone's payment. I knew I had to eventually visit the factory and see what was happening. I made a plan in my head and offered to check out the factory. Then 2 of us, one of my colleagues and I, were scheduled to go check out the factory. I told my colleague to carry a recorder. The owner wouldn't recognize me because when I last met him, I was wearing a mask. We decided to wear our work pants but threw a black jacket over the uniform. As soon as we reached the factory building, I found a man struggling with a wooden box in the entrance. I instantly helped him carry it inside. As we went inside, there were a lot of people standing in the hall and complaining to each other. The man thanked me and extended his arms to shake my hand. Just as I was about to do that, a man in his 50s yelled at us for wasting our time. I looked at him from head to toe. It was the owner. I nodded and put my head down. There was no way I was going to let him get away with his unfair treatment of the customers. He seemed suspicious at first. I was afraid that he would find out that I wasn't an employee. But then there were almost 200 or more workers there at the time. So I had some hope that he would ignore his doubts. This was an inspection, and I was curious if I could find out any more about the owner. I quickly scanned the room and started following the owner and asked my colleague to find the person who had filed the complaint earlier. I roamed into the room and started asking simple questions like how long they had worked and if the owner was always that mean. I told them that I was a new worker. One of the senior employees strongly complained that the owner had the audacity to hire someone new when he couldn't even pay his old ones. I faked a genuine interest and kept asking more questions. Then I asked him if he would like to file a complaint against him. He immediately agreed and said that if he wasn't paid soon, he would do that. His juniors who were surrounding him at the time also expressed a similar feeling. My phone pinged. A text message from my colleague. He told me that he had found the person. I told him to wait and gather more information. I saw the owner coming out of the meeting hall. I slowly followed him quietly. He realized that I was behind him. "Why are you following me? Don't you have work to do? If you keep doing that, I will deduct your salary. Go and work now," he said in an aggressive, demeaning tone. I called my colleague and the complaint guy and then asked them to meet me in the lobby. Then I walked to the waiting area and waited for them. A few minutes later, I saw 4 more people walking towards me along with my colleague. I asked what was happening, and he told me that they wanted to file a complaint as well. I asked them to accompany me as we planned to go to the owner's office and plead with him to pay us. Then I told them to not reveal our identity to the owner. My colleague started the recording device. I knocked on the owner's office and waited for a reply. After 10 seconds or so, he finally asked us to come in. His office was messy and smelly. Seemed like he didn't care for anything. Still, he had some artwork hanging on the wall. They looked custom made and must have been a little expensive. The owner asked us what had happened and why we were crowding his office. I signaled the others to let me speak. We haven't gotten our salary for almost 1.5 months now. There are bills that we have to pay and things that we have to buy, but it's all compromised because we aren't paid yet. Owner, can you please pay us soon? I said. The owner shrugged and nodded his head in tiredness. Not now. I have loads of things to do, you know. I'm not in the mood to entertain your grievances. He gestured for us to leave the office. I wasn't ready to go back so soon. I said, but how will we pay our rent and our other expenses? At least tell us when we will be paid. The owner squinted his eyes and frowned. That's not my problem. Ask someone for it. Beg for it. I don't care. I won't pay right now, he said dismissively. Now get out of here. Don't you have a lot of work to do, or do you want me to reduce your payment for wasting your time out here chatting? I was told by the employees that this is what he always said. He never gave a definitive answer, and he pretended to be busy. I signaled all of them to stay and put more stress on the owner. But when are we going to get paid? At least give us a date. His bloodshot eyes met mine. He took a deep breath and asked my name. I said a fake name, and then he said it would be better for me to work if I don't want consequences. Then he paused, thought something, and declared that everyone had to work for 2 months without pay. It was unbelievable. 2 months was a lot. In what universe would it be okay for him to withhold so many of his employees' wages? One of the employees asked why it would take 2 months, and he said that it was because there were a few things he had to pay for, and he couldn't afford it without cutting everyone's wages. Plus, he believed people weren't working as hard, so this was a way to keep them disciplined and focused. He argued that if you don't put a leash on people, they might turn out rebellious. They were people he was talking about, not pets. He already admitted to doing FSLA violations. When he said that, everyone kept looking at each other. There was no sense of responsibility or regret from his side. He was perfectly okay with grinding his employees for 2 months and paying them late. He wasn't the least bit sorry for the trouble he was causing. That's not our problem. We are working from day to night. How can you say we aren't working hard enough? We are here all the time, and now you're telling us that we won't get our payment in time again? And if a company can't afford something, they should have considered it before. Cutting payments of your employees isn't how you solve your financial issues, another one of the employees said. I stepped up and told him that if he doesn't pay his employees, he will have to answer to the cops and the Department of Labor. The owner rose from his seat and rolled his eyes. He yelled and asked my name again. Then he said, "Get out. You're fired, and I won't pay you a penny. If I see your face again, I will destroy you. And go to everyone. I have good connections. You, on the other hand, you can't even pay your own rent. How will you pay for your lawyers?" And then he chuckled and sat back in his seat. I asked my colleague if he had recorded everything. He had. And then I looked the owner in the eye and said, "I'm not going anywhere. You can't fire me." He gave me a confused look and then said, "I'm in the highest position of power here. No one else is. There's no one who has more authority than me. So if I say you're fired, dude, you're fired. There's no debate." I took off my jacket and showed him the badge I was carrying. Then I put on my mask and asked him if he could recognize me. In just a second, all the color from his face faded. I smiled charmingly, grinning ear to ear, and calmly said, "That's because I am appointed by the state government, Mr. Owner, and you have just admitted that you are withholding all your employees' wages without consent and as a punishment. This is enough for me to file an injunction against you. Also, we learned that you have been making some workers work overtime and you still aren't paying for that. It's an FLSA violation. I will see you in the office then?" He was speechless. He kept looking at everyone. All of his employees were relieved and smiling. I told them to inform others of the news and what was going to happen. Then we returned to the office. Later, I heard he was imprisoned for a few months and had to pay a hefty fine. The employees, too, quit right after receiving their wages. Meanwhile, my sister got a good position in a renowned company. It was found that the owner's company was already almost bankrupt, and the owner hadn't disclosed this information to anyone. COVID had affected them pretty badly. At the beginning of this year, it was announced that the company finally went under and they had to shut down. My friends and I have game nights every Saturday. We met at Daniel's house, fake name, because that's where we've set up our game room. Daniel owns the house, but the four of us split the cost to get all the furniture, screens, and consoles in the room. One of the guys who is an artist did the mural and stuff. It's a sick man cave. Well, Daniel's girlfriend, let's call her Cassie, moved in with him about a month ago. Cassie hates our game room, thinks it should be a home office or something, and that it's a waste of space. Cassie has made it very clear that she hates our weekly boys' night and us. She has been becoming more and more territorial over little petty things around the house. We are now not allowed to use the upstairs bathroom and too much toilet paper. Last week, I went over with a case of LaCroix and some snacks. As I opened the fridge to put my LaCroix in, Cassie tells me that I can't put stuff in the fridge. I have been doing this for the past 2 years and Daniel had zero issues. I asked her why, and she said that she had an Instacart delivery on the way and there will be no space. Mind you, this fridge is huge. You could fit a motorcycle in there. But it was clear she was being petty and I didn't want to argue with someone who clearly hates me. I took my lukewarm LaCroix downstairs. Cassie invited herself to our game night, watching to watch. But she was on her phone the whole time. Then my girlfriend calls. Now, my girlfriend Jessica is a chef at one of the fanciest restaurants in the city. One that's really hard to cop reservations at unless you have an American Express Black Card. Jessica often recreates cheaper yet equally delicious and more generously portioned food at home for friends and family. It's incredible food. Wagyu beef, branzino, prawns, lamb, truffle fries, the sides, you name it. She'll even bring bread from the restaurant. It's a whole course meal. She would sometimes stop by and drop off her incredible creations on her way to her parents. My boys love her for it. They will kill me if I ever break up with Jessica. Even Cassie fawns over her food. She and Daniel came over for dinner one time, and she instantly told Daniel that she wants them to go to her restaurant for their anniversary dinner. Even asked my girlfriend if she can book them a reservation. She couldn't. Well, my girlfriend says she is on her way to her friends and asked if we want to drop off the food on the way. I look at Cassie, who is still on her phone, and I loudly said, "Nah, babe, no need to bring us food. We already got pizza and there's no space in the fridge. Bring them to your friends. You know they'll love that." The boys were obviously a bit disappointed, but didn't complain too much since they already had pizza in their hands. But I could feel Cassie's death glare. I had to open the fridge one last time before leaving to get water. It was half empty. Cassie's Instacart never came, I guess. Edit. All girlfriends, partner, potential partners, and other friends are automatically invited. It's more fun that way. Cassie was invited before she and Daniel started seeing each other. All names are fake, by the way. Edit 2. If you're wondering, if you buy wholesale, you can get American Wagyu for like 15 to 20 pounds. No, Jessica doesn't drop hundreds of dollars to cook for us. She comes and hangs out with us sometimes, but prefers hanging out with her family and friends. We don't take her cooking for granted. We're all very appreciative of her. Jessica and I meal prep together on Fridays, as I'm trying to get better at cooking myself. I am very lucky to have her. I'm going to go over to Daniel's in a bit so we can start off the night with an HOTD, and I'm taking some chocolate for Cassie as a peace offering. Update. So, Cassie wasn't there last night. I asked Daniel if I can use the fridge before opening it, and he sighed and said, "Look, man, I'm sorry about Cassie. Of course you can use the fridge." So, I guess that's that for now. A lot of y'all were mad about the chocolate. I ended up eating it. I, a 20-year-old female, have lived with this girl for over a year. She doesn't realize how annoying she can be. She's a good person at heart, but she's coddled by her parents and thinks that she's the center of the universe. Fun little examples of her behavior. After I come home from a long day of work, she sits on my bed and talks for an hour about a new book she got when I clearly just wanted some time to relax on my own. She'll take my drying dishes off the rack and chuck them all over the kitchen to put a single cup on the rack when there's plenty of room. When shopping, she'll hover over my shoulder and give her opinion on every item I look at or get. Never shuts up. Anyway, the focus of the story. First, some context. Her car stopped working, so I have been getting up at 5 every morning to drive her to work. Never ask her for a thing in exchange. I also do a lot of stuff for her as well, such as buying her drinks, etc. She counts pennies, super exact about the change everyone owes her, down to the cent. So I forgot my card one day and she wanted some lollies. I asked her to pay. It was like $4.50. So when we get home, she asked for the money, but I forgot. And then she keeps hassling me for it until I snap and say, "Fine, then let's count the cents," and tally up all the petrol she owes me for driving her to work, plus the price of hiring a car for a day. I let her drive mine for a day, along with all the other little things I have bought for her this year. The total is over $100. Immediately, she wants to backtrack and says the lollies are paying me back for driving her every day. But nope. Now she has to pay me every cent she owes me and has to find a different lift from now on. Edit. Hey guys, thanks for the support in the comments. Clearing a couple things up I've seen in the comments. 1. I'm Aussie and lollies mean sweets or candy. 2. Yes, I have tried to set boundaries and talked about it in the past. She has anxiety and due to the center of the universe complex, it only leads to meltdowns where I then have to spend an hour convincing her I don't hate her. It's just not worth the energy. I also can't swap roommates for another 6 months. I'm chill and don't mind compromising. I just snapped this time. Everyone has their limits.